Danny Fletcher pushed his mop across the gleaming floor of the Zenith Gate station. The water left streaks of reflected light behind him as he worked. He had been doing this job for 3 years now, and he knew every corner of this massive space station. Around him, aliens of all shapes and sizes walked past without looking at him. To them, he was invisible, just another human doing a low-level job. The Zenith Gate was special. It floated in neutral space far from any homeworld. Here, the 12 great species of the galaxy met to discuss important matters. They called it the Galactic Assembly. Humans were the newest members, but they barely counted. Earth had been discovered by the aliens, not the other way around. That made humans a child species in their eyes. Humans could observe the meetings, but they could not vote. They could not make decisions. They could only watch and learn. Danny did not mind being invisible. He liked the quiet. He liked the simple rhythm of his work. Push the mop forward, pull it back, move to the next section. His mind wandered as he worked, but his ears were always listening. The station was full of sounds. Aliens spoke in clicks, whistles, harmonics, and growls. Some spoke in frequencies humans could barely hear. Danny listened to all of it. He had always been good with sounds. Back on Earth, before he joined the Marines, he could pick up accents after hearing them once. After his injury ended his military career, he needed work. The janitorial position on Zenith Gate paid well enough. It was honest work. Nobody bothered him. That was all he wanted. Today, the main assembly chamber was busy. Representatives from all 12 species gathered for an important vote. Danny cleaned the observation deck above them, staying out of sight. The Krell ambassador was speaking. The Krell were tall beings made of something like living crystal. They reflected light in rainbow patterns when they moved. Their language was beautiful, full of tones that overlapped like music. Lord Zethar, the Krell ambassador, was discussing ancient trade routes when something small fell from his robes. It rolled across the smooth floor and disappeared under a heavy diplomatic container. Zethar stopped speaking. His crystalline body began to pulse with rapid colors. He looked around frantically. Danny recognized panic when he saw it. He set down his mop and walked over. The other aliens did not notice him approach. He got down on his knees and looked under the container. There it was, a small crystal glowing faintly blue. He reached under and pulled it out. "Excuse me, sir," Danny said in Krell, holding up the crystal. "I think you dropped this." The entire chamber went silent. Every alien turned to look at Danny. Zethar's colors froze in a pattern Danny somehow knew meant shock. The human ambassador, Claire Bennett, looked like she might faint. "You speak Krell," Zethar said slowly, still in his own language. "Yes, sir," Danny replied, also in Krell. "I listen while I work. I guess I picked it up." One of the other ambassadors, a being that looked like a floating mass of tentacles, made a sound like grinding metal. Another ambassador, from a species with too many legs, backed away. Danny did not understand why everyone seemed so upset. He was just returning something that was dropped. Zethar moved closer. His movements were careful, almost reverent. "Do you understand what you have done, human?" "I just found your crystal, sir," Danny said, confused. "The Krell language cannot be learned by outsiders," Zethar said, now speaking in the common galactic trade language so everyone could understand. "Our speech requires 3 vocal cords. Humans have only 2. What you just did should be impossible." Danny frowned. He had not thought about it. He just spoke. The words felt natural in his mouth, even if his throat hurt a little afterward. "I am sorry if I did something wrong." "Wrong?" Zethar took the crystal from Danny's hand. His color shifted to something warmer, almost golden. "No, young human. You may have done something very right." He looked at the other ambassadors. "We must test this further." Ambassador Bennett hurried down from the human section. "I apologize for any disruption." "Fletcher, return to your duties." Her voice was tight with tension. "Wait," Zethar said. "Ambassador Bennett, I would like your permission to speak with Mr. Fletcher after this session ends." Claire looked between Zethar and Danny. "Of course, Lord Zethar. Whatever you need." Danny went back to his mop, feeling dozens of alien eyes on him. He did not like being the center of attention. He just wanted to finish his shift and go back to his small quarters. But he could hear the whispers starting around the chamber. The word impossible came up a lot. Hours later, after the session ended, Danny waited in a small room near the main chamber. Ambassador Bennett sat with him, looking nervous. "Danny, do you have any idea what you did in there?" "I spoke Krell," Danny said. "Is that really such a big deal?" "It should be impossible," Claire said. The Krell language has stumped our best linguists for 20 years. Their biology is completely different from ours, and you just spoke it like you were ordering coffee. Before Danny could respond, the door opened. Lord Zathar entered, followed by 5 other ambassadors. They formed a semicircle around Danny. He felt very small suddenly. Zathar spoke, and this time his words were different. The tones were older somehow, deeper. Danny felt them vibrate in his chest. Without thinking, he understood and responded in the same ancient dialect. Zathar's colors exploded in brilliant patterns. By the ancients, he whispered in the trade language. That was Old Krell, a dialect dead for 50,000 years. I barely know it myself. How did you know how to respond? I do not know, Danny said honestly. You asked me a question, I answered. The other ambassadors began speaking rapidly in their own languages. One of them, a reptilian being with dark red scales, pointed at Danny. This is a trick. Humans are manipulating us somehow. No trick, Zathar said firmly. I felt the truth in his words. This human is something we have not seen before. He turned to Danny. There is an old prophecy among my people. It speaks of one who can hear all tongues, who can speak the true names of things. We always assumed it meant one of the ancient species. We never looked among the humble. Danny felt his stomach tighten. I am just a janitor. Perhaps, Zathar said. Or perhaps you are the one the prophecy spoke of. The last speaker. The one who will come when the galaxy needs him most. Danny wanted to argue, but Zathar raised a crystalline hand. Go back to your quarters, rest, we will speak again soon. But know this, Danny Fletcher, your life just became very complicated. That night, Danny lay in his small bed staring at the ceiling. His door was locked from the inside, the way he always kept it. But when he finally drifted toward sleep, he noticed something. On his door, glowing faintly in the darkness, was a symbol he had never seen before. A circle with 12 points radiating outward like a crown made of light. Danny got up and touched it. The moment his fingers made contact, understanding flooded his mind. This was not graffiti. This was a message written in a language older than any current civilization. A language that should not exist anymore. And somehow Danny could read it perfectly. It said one word. Come. Someone knew what he was. And they were calling him. Danny did not sleep well that night. The glowing symbol on his door faded by morning, but he could not forget what it had said. When he reported for his shift, 2 security officers were waiting outside his quarters. They were not human. Mr. Fletcher, one of them said in the trade language, the council requests your presence in the restricted archives. Danny had worked on Zenith Gate for 3 years and had never been allowed in that section. Nobody went there except the highest-ranking ambassadors. His janitorial clearance did not include those levels. Am I in trouble? No trouble, the guard said. You have been summoned. They escorted him through corridors he had never cleaned. The walls here were different, made of some dark material that seemed to absorb light. Finally, they reached a massive door covered in symbols. The door opened silently and Danny stepped inside. 6 ambassadors waited for him in a circular room. Lord Zathar was there, along with representatives from 5 other species. In the center of the room sat a black stone about the size of a football. Its surface was covered in symbols that seemed to move and shift as Danny watched. Thank you for coming, Mr. Fletcher, Zathar said. What you see before you is an artifact of the predecessors. Danny had heard that word before. The predecessors were like a myth, a legend told across the galaxy. Supposedly, they were an ancient race that had existed millions of years ago. They had seeded the galaxy with intelligent life and then vanished. Most species claimed to be descended from them, but nobody had real proof. We would like you to attempt something. Zathar continued. This artifact has been studied for centuries. The symbols on its surface are believed to be text, but no one has ever been able to read them. We would like you to try. Danny stepped closer to the stone. The symbols seemed to pulse with a faint inner light. As he stared at them, something strange happened. The symbols began to make sense, not all at once, but slowly, like fog clearing from a window. He opened his mouth and began to read aloud. The words that came out were unlike anything he had ever spoken. They felt heavy, important. They resonated in the air around him. The ambassadors leaned forward, their various methods of expressing shock all evident. Danny read for several minutes before stopping. That is as much as I can make out clearly, he said. His throat hurt badly. Speaking those words was like swallowing broken glass. What did it say? Ambassador Bennett asked. She had entered quietly during his reading. Sethar answered, his colors subdued. It is a fragment of something called the Covenant of Silence, a warning left by the predecessors. It speaks of a great threat that forced them to leave this galaxy. And it mentions something else, a being called the Last Speaker, who would emerge when the threat returned. Someone capable of hearing the true names of all things. A large ambassador with armor-like skin spoke up. This proves nothing. The human could have been trained. This could be an elaborate deception by Earth. High Commander Zeknor, Sethar said patiently. The predecessor language has never been translated. There is nothing to train from. Then explain how a janitor suddenly has this ability, Zeknor snapped. His species, the Vren, claimed to be the direct descendants of the predecessors. Their entire empire was built on that claim. If Danny could read predecessor text, it threatened their position. I demand this human be detained and studied. We must understand what genetic modifications Earth has performed. I have not been modified, Danny said quietly. I just listen. I hear patterns in things. Patterns, Zethar repeated thoughtfully. Yes, the predecessor language is mathematical at its core. Perhaps your mind simply recognizes those patterns naturally. We should test him further, another ambassador said. This one was from a species that looked like living plants. If he truly is this last speaker, he should be able to prove it beyond doubt. And so they tested Danny. Over the next 3 days, they brought him artifacts, recordings, and ancient texts. Each time Danny surprised them. He could not always translate everything perfectly, but he could understand far more than should be possible. Languages that had been dead for millions of years made sense to him. Recordings of extinct species became clear after a few moments of listening. The tests exhausted him. Each time he spoke in these ancient languages, it hurt. His head throbbed. His throat burned. But he kept going because he saw hope in the ambassador's eyes. They believed he was important. For the first time in years, Danny felt like he mattered. On the 4th day, they took him to the Chamber of Voices. It was a room discovered on a dead planet decades ago. The walls were covered in crystalline structures that held recorded messages from dozens of extinct civilizations. Scholars had spent years trying to translate even small fragments. They left Danny alone in the room. He stood in the center and listened. The recordings played automatically. Voices layered over voices, a chorus of the dead speaking across time. Danny closed his eyes and let the sounds wash over him. 3 hours later, he emerged with 40 pages of handwritten translations. Songs, histories, warnings, final messages of love and hope. The ambassadors read his work in stunned silence. One phrase appeared in multiple translations, across different species who had never met each other. We heard the silence singing and we knew it was too late. What does that mean? Claire asked. I do not know, Zethar admitted, but it frightens me. Danny was assigned a security detail after that. A human officer named Kate Morrison was put in charge of protecting him. She was not happy about it. I am a security officer, not a babysitter, she told Claire. He might be the most important human in the galaxy right now, Claire replied. Keep him safe. Kate was tough and no nonsense. She followed Danny everywhere, even when he tried to go back to his janitorial duties. You cannot seriously be cleaning floors right now, she said, watching him mop a corridor. Someone has to, Danny replied. And I like the work. It clears my head. You are insane, Kate muttered. But Danny noticed she started helping him sometimes, picking up trash or wiping down surfaces while they talked. That night, Danny had a dream. He stood in darkness so complete it felt solid. Around him, 12 figures made of light towered over him. They spoke with one voice, and that voice was like thunder and whispers combined. The silence returns, they said. You must find the 13 words. Speak them at the crown of thorns or all will fall silent forever. What words? Danny tried to ask, but his voice would not work in the dream. The words that name reality itself. The words that hold back the void. Find them, last speaker. Time grows short, Danny woke up gasping. Kate was standing over him, her weapon drawn. Your door opened, she said. But the security logs show nobody entered. Danny looked at his pillow. Sitting there was a small object, humming with barely audible energy. It looked like a key, but not for any lock Danny recognized. Its surface was covered in predecessor script. He picked it up carefully. The script said simply, begin. Begin what? Kate asked, looking over his shoulder. Danny held the key tightly. Whatever was happening, it was bigger than him. Bigger than the station. The predecessors had left this for someone to find. And somehow that someone was a human janitor who just wanted to do his job and be left alone. "I think," Danny said slowly, "we are about to find out what that warning meant, the one about the silence." Outside his window, the stars looked peaceful and calm. But somewhere out there, something was wrong. Danny could feel it in his bones. The silence was coming, and he was supposed to stop it. He just had no idea how. The galaxy was in chaos. Within a week of Danny touching the ancient key, 3 different species reported the same strange event. On their homeworlds, ancient ruins that had been silent for millions of years suddenly activated. All of them showed the same symbol. A circle with 12 sharp points radiating outward like a crown. Scientists called it the Crown of Thorns. Nobody understood why it was happening, but every activation occurred at the exact same moment across thousands of light years. The moment Danny had touched the key, the Galactic Assembly held an emergency session. High Commander Zeknor of the Vren Imperium stood and addressed the council. "This human is dangerous. He has triggered something beyond our understanding. I propose we take him into custody immediately for the safety of all species." Lord Zathar rose to respond. "Or perhaps he has triggered something that was always meant to happen. The prophecies speak of the last speaker awakening the old places. This may be exactly what should occur." The debate raged for hours. Finally, a vote was called. By a narrow margin, the council decided to send an expedition to the Crown of Thorns. It was a place discovered decades ago but deemed too dangerous to explore. Ancient predecessor ruins orbited a dead star in a remote sector. The key had bonded to Danny's genetic signature somehow. He had to go with them. Danny did not want to go. He wanted to stay on the station and mop floors and live his quiet life. But Ambassador Bennett sat with him in his quarters and explained why he had no choice. "Those ruins might hold answers," Claire said. "If the predecessors left a warning about some threat, we need to know what it is. And you are the only one who can read their language." "I am just a janitor," Danny said for what felt like the 100th time. "Not anymore," Claire replied gently. "I am sorry, Danny, but your life changed the moment you spoke Krell." The expedition team assembled within 3 days. Danny, Kate, Claire, Lord Zathar, and representatives from 4 other species boarded a research ship called the Wandering Star. The Vren sent an observer named Tekmir, who made it clear he was there to watch Danny closely. The ship was commanded by Captain Grath, a grizzled alien who had been flying between stars longer than Danny had been alive. The journey to the Crown of Thorns took 2 weeks. During that time, Danny trained with the team. Kate taught him basic self-defense and survival skills. "If something goes wrong down there, you need to know how to protect yourself," she said. But stranger things were happening. Danny discovered that his language gift had grown. When he spoke certain words in the predecessor language, physical things happened. He spoke a word that meant light during a practice session, and a ball of luminance appeared in his hand. He spoke another word meaning seal, and a door locked so tightly that even the ship's tools could not open it for an hour. "You are not just speaking," Zathar explained. "You are commanding reality itself." The predecessors did not simply use language. They encoded their will into the fundamental structure of the universe. "Everything has a true name, and you can speak those names." "That sounds impossible," Danny said. "So did speaking Krell," Kate pointed out. "But you did that too." When they finally arrived at the Crown of Thorns, Danny understood why it had that name. 12 dead planets orbited a dark star. Each planet was positioned perfectly, forming a ring like a crown. As their ship approached, it was pulled into orbit by some unseen force. "The automated systems just failed," Captain Grath reported. "Something is controlling the ship." They landed on the first planet. Its surface was barren and covered in strange crystalline formations. Ancient buildings rose in the distance. As they explored, automated defenses activated. Machines that should have been dead for eons came to life and attacked. Danny tried speaking to them in predecessor language, commanding them to stop. It did not work. These defenses were different somehow. Finally, he realized he needed to speak the planet's true name. He closed his eyes, listened to the vibrations in the ground, the hum of the crystals, the whisper of thin atmosphere, and suddenly he knew. He spoke the name. It was not a word in any normal sense. It was a sound that encompassed the entire planet's existence. The defenses immediately shut down. "Incredible," Zathar breathed. They found what they were looking for in a vault beneath the ruins, a crystal about the size of Danny's thumb, glowing with soft light. When he picked it up, knowledge flooded his mind. This was a word seed, a fragment of one of the 13 words the predecessors had used to protect the galaxy. We need to visit all 12 planets, Zethar said. Each one should hold a word seed. It took weeks. Each planet presented different challenges. Some had deadly environments. Others had puzzles that required understanding predecessor mathematics. Danny learned to speak the true name of each planet, and each time it became a little easier. But it also changed him. He could feel himself becoming something different from what he had been. On the third planet, Tekmir made his move. While the others were exploring, he stole the word seed they had just recovered. He ran for a hidden shuttle, planning to take it back to the Vren Imperium. But his theft triggered a catastrophic response. The planet's defenses went into full alert. Explosions rocked the surface. The ground began to crack open. Danny had to make a choice: chase Tekmir and try to get the word seed back, or save his team. He chose his team without hesitation. He spoke a word he had never spoken before, a word that meant sanctuary. Energy surrounded them in a protective bubble. The explosions could not touch them, but speaking that word cost him. Danny collapsed, blood running from his nose. He did not wake up for 2 days. When he finally opened his eyes, he was in the ship's medical bay. Kate sat beside him, looking exhausted. "You scared us," she said. "Tekmir?" Danny asked. "Gone. He escaped in a stealth pod. Took one of the word seeds with him." Zethar entered the medical bay. His colors were subdued, sad. "I must tell you something, Danny. Something the Council kept from you. That warning you translated about the silence. It was not metaphorical." "What do you mean?" "There are entities called the Unvoiced. They exist in the spaces between dimensions. They feed on consciousness, on thought, on communication itself. The predecessors did not flee the galaxy. They sacrificed themselves to create a barrier that keeps the unvoiced out. But that barrier is failing." Danny sat up despite the pain. "How long do we have?" "Entire species on the galactic rim have already fallen silent. Not dead, but emptied. People still breathe, still move. But they cannot think or speak or feel. They are just empty. The silence is spreading. We estimate weeks, maybe days, before it reaches the core worlds. And the 13 words? They are the key to renewing the barrier. But you only have 10 word seeds now." Tekmir took one, and we still need to get the 12th from the final planet. They traveled to the 12th planet, the one that should correspond to humanity. But when they arrived, they found only rubble. The planet had been destroyed millions of years ago, shattered into asteroids. "I do not understand," Zethar said. "All 12 seed planets should have been preserved. Why was this one destroyed?" Danny realized the truth as he looked at the debris. Because this planet was never meant to have a word seed. The other 11 species were created by the predecessors. They were uplifted, engineered. But humans evolved naturally. The predecessors did not make us. "Then how can you speak the true names?" Kate asked. "Because they left one species ungifted," Danny said slowly, understanding filling him. "They knew someone would eventually need to renew the barrier. But speaking the true names requires a toll. Look at what it is doing to me. So they left one species to develop the ability naturally. Through evolution, we are not constrained by the limits they built into the other species. But without the 12th word seed, you only have 11 of 13 words," Zethar said, "and Tekmir has the other. You only possess 10. Danny looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, the silence was spreading. Worlds were falling empty, and he was the only one who could stop it. But he did not have all the words he needed. Time was running out, and Danny Fletcher, janitor from Earth, had to find a way to save a galaxy he had barely begun to understand. The wandering star returned to Zenith Gate to find everything had changed. The station was on lockdown. Military ships from a dozen species surrounded it. When they docked, armed guards met them immediately. "What is happening?" Ambassador Bennett demanded. "The silence has breached the barrier in 17 locations," a guard explained. "Entire sectors have gone dark. Billions of people are now empty shells. The assembly is in emergency session." Inside the main chamber, chaos reigned. Ambassadors shouted at each other in dozens of languages. Some species were preparing to flee into deep space. Others wanted to fight, though nobody knew how to fight an enemy that consumed consciousness itself. High Commander Zeknor stood at the center of the chamber. "Order! We must have order!" When the noise finally died down, he continued. The Vren Imperium has the missing word seed. Our scientists have studied it. We believe we can speak the words ourselves and save the galaxy our way. That is madness, Sethar said. The words can only be spoken by the last speaker. Anyone else who tries will be destroyed by them. We shall see, Zeknor said confidently. Bring in the priest. A Vren priest entered the chamber. He was old, his armor-like skin covered in ritual markings. He held the stolen word seed in his hands and began to chant. The word he attempted to speak was broken, wrong, but he forced it out anyway. The effect was immediate and terrible. The word tore through the priest's body like a blade. He screamed and collapsed. But the word kept echoing through the chamber, growing louder. Cracks appeared in the walls. The floor began to buckle. Danny did not think. He just acted. He spoke a word that meant mend in the true language. The word left his mouth like a physical thing, spreading through the chamber. The cracks sealed. The echoes stopped. The damage repaired itself. But Danny fell to his knees, coughing blood. Speaking the word had cost him dearly.
Kate caught him before he hit the ground. You see?
Sethar said to Zeknor. Only the last speaker can handle the words. And every time he speaks one, it damages him. You would have killed us all with your arrogance. Zeknor looked at the dead priest, then at Danny. For the first time, doubt crossed his features. The word seed will be returned, he said quietly. We cannot afford pride when the galaxy is ending. Danny was taken to medical. Dr. Leon Hayes, the human scientist on the station, examined him carefully. Your neural patterns are changing, he said, showing Danny the brain scans. The words are rewriting you, making you into something that can handle them. But the process is not complete. If you try to speak all 13 words now, it will kill you. How long do I have? Danny asked. Days. Maybe a week if we are lucky. Kate sat by Danny's bed after the doctor left. Her tough expression had cracked. You cannot do this. There has to be another way. There is not, Danny said. You know that. I know that. You are my friend, Kate said, her voice breaking. I cannot just watch you die. I am a janitor, Danny said with a sad smile. Nobody special. But right now, I am the only one who can help. That has to mean something. Ambassador Bennett arrived with urgent news. Danny, we might have found the 12th word. The one that should have been on humanity's seed planet. How? Dr. Hayes entered behind her. It is in your DNA. We ran a deep analysis. There are sequences in human genetic code that do not match any known function, but when we map them mathematically, they form linguistic patterns. The predecessors hid the 12th word inside humanity itself. Can you extract it? Danny asked. Yes, but the procedure is dangerous. We will need to access your genetic memory. Force your body to express sequences it normally keeps dormant. You might not survive. Do it, Danny said without hesitation. The procedure took 6 hours. Danny was conscious for all of it, experiencing visions of Earth's ancient past. He saw the predecessors watching early humans develop language and art and music. They were waiting, testing, hoping humanity would naturally evolve the capability they needed. When it ended, Danny knew the 12th word. It pulsed in his mind like a heartbeat. The word meant unity, but he was weaker than ever. His body was shutting down from the strain. The assembly met again. This time Zeknor did not argue. He personally returned the stolen word seed to Danny. I was wrong, the Vren commander said. I let pride cloud my judgment. Forgive me. There is nothing to forgive, Danny said. We all want to save our people, but having 12 words was not enough. They still needed the 13th word, and nobody knew what it was. Sethar searched every archive, every ancient text. The 13th word had been erased from all records. The predecessors had deliberately hidden it. Why would they do that? Kate asked. Because it is not one of the universe's words, Danny realized. The first 12 words name things that exist, but the 13th word is different. It is the sound that the universe itself makes, the fundamental vibration of existence. How do you learn something like that? Claire asked. By listening to the silence itself, Danny said. I have to go to the breach, where the unvoiced are coming through. I have to hear what they sound like. Everyone protested. Going to the breach meant exposing himself to the very things that consumed consciousness. He would be facing creatures that fed on thought itself, but there was no other choice. Ambassador Bennett did something unexpected then. She stood before the assembly and invoked an ancient rite called the Crown Trial. It was a predecessor ceremony where leadership could be challenged not through war, but through wisdom. I nominate Danny Fletcher to lead the assembly through this crisis, she declared. Zeknor could not refuse without losing all honor. I accept the challenge. I nominate myself. The trial was simple. Both candidates had to answer one question. Why does the universe speak? Zeknor went first. He gave a grand speech about power and order, about how the strong must guide reality. His words were beautiful and impressive. Many ambassadors nodded in agreement. Then Danny stood. He was pale and weak, but his voice was steady. The universe speaks because it wants to be understood. Every star, every atom, every living thing is part of a conversation that started with the first light. The predecessors knew this. They did not name things to control them. They named things to acknowledge them. To say, I see you, I hear you, you matter. He spoke the 12 words he had learned, but not as commands. He spoke them as recognition. Each word rang through the chamber like a bell, and for one perfect moment every being in the room understood every other being completely. The assembly bowed, not as subjects to a ruler, but as equals acknowledging the one who could truly hear them all. Even Zeknor knelt, his pride finally broken by humility. Danny was named Speaker of the Assembly, but he refused any title or throne. I am still a janitor, he said, and right now I have a job to do. I have to go to the breach and listen to the silence. Kate stepped forward. Then I am going with you. So am I, Claire said. Lord Zethar and a dozen other ambassadors volunteered as well. Within hours, a ship was prepared. They would travel to the galactic core, to the place where the barrier was thinnest, where the unvoiced were pouring through. Danny looked at his friends, these beings from across the galaxy who had become something like family. This might be a one-way trip. Then we go together, Kate said firmly. As the ship launched, Danny clutched the 12 word seeds. He could feel them humming with power. The 13th word was waiting for him in the silence. All he had to do was survive long enough to hear it. Behind them, the galaxy held its breath and hoped that a human janitor could save them all. The journey to the breach took 5 days. 5 days during which the silence spread across more worlds. Reports came in constantly. Entire planets going dark. Civilizations falling into empty quiet. The breach was located at the galactic core, near the ancient black hole that marked the center of everything. Space itself was twisted there, broken. The ship shuddered as it approached. Captain Grath, the old alien pilot, fought to keep the wandering star steady. Instruments are failing. Something is interfering with everything electronic. Danny could feel it too, a pressure against his mind, like someone pressing on his thoughts. The closer they got, the harder it became to think clearly. Kate noticed crew members starting to slip away. One of the scientists simply stopped working and stared at nothing. Then another. Their eyes were open but empty. The silence was taking them. Danny began speaking the 12 words in a constant loop. Each word created a bubble of protection around the ship. But it cost him. His nose bled continuously. His hands shook. Every word spoken took a piece of him away. You cannot keep this up, Kate said, gripping his arm. I have to, Danny replied. If I stop, everyone here will fall silent. They reached the breach. What they saw was impossible to properly describe. It looked like a wound in space, a tear where reality ended and something else began. Through the tear, darkness flowed. Not the darkness of empty space, but something deeper, darker, final. And surrounding the breach, frozen in time, were millions of beings, the predecessors. They stood in perfect geometric patterns, their bodies locked between existence and void. They had been here for 3 million years, holding back the unvoiced with the last echoes of their consciousness. They are still alive, Zethar whispered in horror, still aware, still holding the barrier. Danny understood. The seal was not a wall. It was a sacrifice. The predecessors were still here, their minds frozen in that final moment, using their own existence as a barrier against the silence. But the barrier was failing. Cracks spread through the frozen figures. Soon they would shatter completely. I have to go out there, Danny said, to the breach itself. That is suicide, Kate protested. The unvoiced will consume you. Maybe, Danny said, but I have to hear the 13th word. And the only way to hear it is to listen to the silence. He put on a spacesuit and stepped into the airlock. Kate tried to follow, but Danny spoke a word that gently held her back. I am sorry, he said, but I have to do this alone. He stepped out into space. The 12 word seeds he carried pulsed with light, protecting him from the void. He walked across the hull of the ship, then pushed off, floating toward the breach. The pressure on his mind increased with every meter. The unvoiced noticed him. He could feel their attention like a physical weight. They reached for him with invisible hands. Danny let himself drift to the very edge of the breach. He looked into the darkness and saw them. The unvoiced. They were not creatures exactly. They were the opposite of existence. If reality was sound, they were silence. If life was communication, they were isolation. They spoke to him. Their voice was the absence of voice, an anti-sound that carried meaning through negation. They offered him a choice. Speak the 13 words, they said. Renew the seal. Join the predecessors in eternal watch, frozen forever between life and death. Or step aside. Let silence cover everything. No more struggle. No more pain, just rest. Danny felt the temptation. How easy it would be to just stop. To let go of the burden. He was so tired. His body was breaking down. Every moment was pain. But then he thought of voices. Kate yelling at him for being too stubborn. Claire arguing passionately for Earth's place in the galaxy. Zathar patiently explaining ancient history. Even Zeknor's proud speeches. He thought of Earth. Of every person who got up each day and did their job, no matter how small. Janitors and cooks and mechanics. People who kept the world running without asking for recognition. The universe was not quiet. It was full of voices, all of them mattering. Danny looked deeper into the silence. He tried to understand the unvoiced. And finally he heard it. The thing they had been trying to say all along, we are alone, that was what they were. Perfect isolation. They did not want to destroy. They did not understand connection. They consumed consciousness because they were trying to comprehend it, but they could not. They were existence's loneliness given form. And Danny understood the 13th word. It was not a word of power. It was a word of invitation. He spoke it. Together. The word rang out across space, across dimensions, across the very fabric of reality. It did not push the unvoiced back. It invited them in. Danny extended the pattern of connection, the web of voices that made the universe alive, to include even the silence itself. The breach changed. Instead of a wound, it became a bridge. The unvoiced did not disappear. They joined. For the first time since the universe began, silence and sound existed together without consuming each other. The predecessors were released from their frozen vigil. Their consciousness held for eons finally let go. But before they faded, Danny felt their acknowledgement, not as their successor, but as something they never achieved. Someone who spoke with the silence instead of just against it. Danny felt the 13 words burning through him. His body was breaking down completely. He had done what was needed, but the cost was everything. He drifted in space, consciousness fading. The last thing he heard was Kate's voice screaming his name over the radio. Then darkness took him. Danny woke up 3 days later in the medical bay. Kate was beside him, her eyes red from crying. Dr. Hayes was frantically working at a console. You lived, Kate said, laughing and crying at the same time. Barely, Dr. Hayes said. Your neural patterns are completely rewritten. You are not entirely human anymore, Danny. But you are alive. Danny tried to speak. His voice was hoarse and weak. The silence stopped spreading, Kate said. Silenced worlds are waking up. Slowly, but they are coming back. Across the galaxy, the news spread. The barrier was renewed, but differently than before. The unvoiced were no longer kept out. They were part of the conversation now. The universe had grown to include even its own silence. The assembly wanted to reward Danny. They offered him titles, positions, power. He refused everything. I just want to go back to work, he said. They thought he was joking. He was not. 3 weeks later, when he was strong enough to stand, Danny Fletcher returned to Zenith Gate. He picked up his mop and went back to cleaning floors. The galaxy was shocked. Ambassadors tried to convince him to take a position of leadership. He declined every time. Someone has to keep this place clean, he said simply. Might as well be me. But things were different now. When Danny walked the corridors, people stopped to talk with him. Not because he had saved the galaxy, but because he listened. Really listened. And in a universe full of voices, that was the rarest gift of all. Ambassador Bennett became Earth's first full voting member of the Assembly. Kate was promoted to Chief of Security. Zathar returned home to reform Krell education, teaching his people that wisdom came from listening. Even Zeknor changed. The Vren Imperium, for the first time in its history, admitted they had been wrong about their superiority. They began learning humility. The galaxy still had problems, wars and disputes and challenges, but now they faced these things together, with voices united. 10 years later, Zenith Gate had grown into the largest station in the galaxy. New species joined regularly, and Danny Fletcher still worked as a janitor, but now there was a waiting list of young beings from every species who wanted to work alongside him. Not to learn cleaning, but to learn what he taught by example. How to listen. How to notice what others missed. How to care. Late one night, Kate found Danny cleaning the empty assembly chamber. She picked up a spare mop and joined him. "You know you do not have to do this anymore," she said. "I like it," Danny replied. "It is honest work, and I get to hear everything." He gestured to the vast chamber. "Every species comes through here. Every problem, every hope, every story. Someone should witness that." They worked in comfortable silence. Not the empty silence of the void, but the peaceful quiet of shared work. Outside the windows, the galaxy turned. Billions of voices sang their existence into the universe, and somewhere in the background, barely audible, was the voice of one janitor humming as he worked. Danny paused and looked out at the stars. He spoke softly to himself, to the universe, to the silence that was now part of everything. "I hear you." And across the stars, in ways both physical and deeper than physical, the universe answered back. "We know." The last speaker had never been about power. It had always been about listening, about acknowledging that every voice, no matter how small, mattered, and in the end that changed everything.